Hello, my name is Torsten Pruis. Welcome to my online presentation of the Network Access Tool, or NAT, that was designed and programmed for COM 482 at Athabasca University. This presentation will show in detail the user interface and design rationale for the application. The Network Access Tool was designed as a front-end application for an 802.1x network authentication system. The company for which NAT was designed uses active user authentication and authorization before allowing users or devices network access. Since the backend network systems are fairly complicated and only a limited amount of users have access to them, the company needs a system that allows the help desk and the networking group in the IT department to easily configure all the backend systems. For scope, the system needs to provide status information of the backend system components, allow quick and easy user and device access configuration, run real-time monitoring sessions which are used for troubleshooting, and a historical log reporting component which can be used for analysis and reporting. The purpose of the design is to be user-friendly for the IT staff to use, so regular users will not use it, just IT staff. A clear and simple design that prevents errors from being made and therefore increasing security, and it needs to run on different OS platforms with the possibility to be web enabled in the future. The technology that was used to implement NAT is Java with Swing GUI components. Java is very good in being OS independent, so it will run on all different operating systems like Windows, Linux, Apple OS X, and it's not difficult to web enable it also. It's an object-oriented programming language. Also, the help file that's built into the program runs on HTML, so a browser could be used or a web server to serve it. And also the program itself exports some information into a text file, can print and send it also by email. As for design walkthroughs, how the system was designed, it started with getting user requirements and creating task examples for a task-centered design. All this information was then taken to create a list of items and determine what must be included in the system, should be included, could be included, and also components that cannot or should not be or should be excluded from it. All that information was then taken to create low-fidelity diagrams or sketches which showed the various user interface screens, and those were then given to the users for feedback and asking them to evaluate design. And all of this feedback was then analyzed and some recommendations were formulated, which then in an reiterative process it was fed back into the beginning where new designs were created. They were given back to the users, and so it looped through this until it was a fairly good design on paper. And the design screens were then taken to program a prototype, which I'm showing today. This prototype is not integrated with the backend yet. It just shows the UI screens, and it's for evaluation processes only. So from here it will continue with this reiterative process where the users will evaluate and continuously improve the system until it is ready to go into production and be integrated with the backend system. The design rationale for the interface were a simple and clear design that is visually pleasing and easy to use, provide all the necessary information and not cluttering up the screen with information that is not used or unnecessary, clear error messages so the users know at all times why or when something was not working, keep task groups together by functionality and natural sequences. For example, in the Western world, we read from left to right and top to bottom, so the layout of the design keeps that in mind. Be consistent in naming and use of elements, so all the various screens are similar. Reuse the use of the user's mental resources. This is done, for example, by using drop-down menus that give a selection of available choices so the users don't have to remember them and they can just pick one from a list of available items. Provide instant feedback, so once again a user knows exactly at any time what's happening and why. Provide alternative navigation methods, in this case can be used with a mouse and a keyboard. prevent errors, which is very big, obviously for security reasons. We don't want wrong or incorrect information in the system. And finally, use known UI elements, so the learning curve is fairly small and users should feel familiar with the system when they first see it. And that ends the presentations, the slide screen. So let's go into the presentation of the system itself. When it first starts up, this is what the user will see. At this point, there is no user authentication mechanism yet, which needs to be implemented. Probably the best way would be an directory integrated system, so they don't have their own user accounts in the system, but they use one that's already in place at the company. So it's a typical standard design where we have on top our layout buttons: close, minimize, maximize. We have the little description of the program name, a toolbar with a file menu. We have some options here to move between the various screens, an exit option. We have a help file and a little about screen. This one just gives us some information about the tool, version number. Maybe we put in developer names, how to contact us, whatever we'd like to present to the users. The help file, right now, as mentioned, is just a web-based one. So if we click this here, my browser will come up with the help file, which needs to be definitely improved, but it's a proof of concept, so this opens up. So the program itself consists of 4 main tabs: system status, user access configuration, real-time monitoring, and historical logs. And we can see as we hover over those tabs, we get little information on what happens over them. So the help is built into the program itself as well. The buttons do the same thing. The system status screen is the first one that comes up. It's no user input required on this one. It's just a plain informational screen that shows the user on what's happening in the system or the backend. So we can see the individual components that make up the network authentication system. We get in writing, in words, what's happening with the system. Is it up? Is it down? Does it have errors? But we'll also get the icons. So green check mark is good, obviously. Yellow exclamation mark, there's an error, so we might want to look. But red here is really bad. So obviously, if we were having problems, we could quickly see that, well, DHCP server 1 is down. Maybe we need to investigate here. So it's a very quick, easy visual overview, and then we'll just scroll around and see everything is good. The user access configuration screen is split into 2 parts. We can work with existing entries, and we can create new entries. So there's, if I hover over a button, I'll get a little information, what's happening there. But another thing that's important, buttons I can't use that are grayed out. So obviously we don't have an account yet, so delete and update are not working at this time. So if we want to search for an existing one, we just, let's say, want to look for username, we pick what we want. At this point, only equals is in here because we only want one result enabled in order to make the delete and update function clear. If we would have some other search criterion here that would come back with several results, we would need another method to distinguish which record we want to work with. So for now it's just equals, but it can be easily extended in the future. So if we look for a user in here, John D, we'll have a look, and he's not in the system, so we'll get a pop-up window that informs us that the user could not be found. We look for someone else though, Jane D, we search for her, she is in the system, so it opens up. We get all the information that's in the system, so we have a username, the group she's in, and the description, and now the delete and update are available. So if we want to change her information, let's say she's not a guest anymore, but she's now a marketing user, maybe we want to change the description too, and then we just hit the update button and we get another pop-up that says us that it was successfully updated, the new information that was put in the system. And when we say OK, it goes back to the default and allows us to perform another function. At this point we are fairly sure it happened, but just for argument's sake we want to make sure the changes went through. We search for Jane D, and now we can see she's a marketing user. Let's say we made a mistake or we were supposed to delete her. We just click delete. We've been told that the username was removed from the system, and say OK. We search again, we'll see that now she's gone and we can't find her. Once again, let's assume we have made a mistake. We actually need her in the system. We want to add her, just go username. We want to add Jane D. If we add her without a description, or if we didn't put a username in here and we go add, we get an error message telling us that the field cannot be empty and please enter or something. So we'll select where we want to put her. By default, the blocked group is selected, which is another method to prevent errors. So for example, we didn't just want someone to create an account by accident or picking a wrong one and just giving somebody access. So by default, it's blocked, which would mean a person does not get access. Description, so Jane Doe, and we add her to the system, and now we're told that the user was added and which group. We say OK, clears up, we're ready for the next action. She is in the system, but just to verify, we can do a quick search, and we see Jane D is in the block group and is in the system. So very easy way of adding and modifying and deleting existing accounts in the system. Now the real-time monitoring screen, this one is used where we can see authentications happening in the system in real time. So now as we can see, the time moves up every second. It's a very busy company. Something is happening here. We get some status and additional information, the device, the user, which computer they're on, IP address, switch, port. So a lot of information, very good. For example, user calls up and says they're having problems authenticating. We can check the real-time status screen here and we can see, and let's say Peter had called in and we see there's some failures. We can further troubleshoot it, but assume this goes by really fast. Now it's a very busy company, so we want to filter to get the information. So we can filter by several criteria. Let's say we want to filter by username. So we select that, and then here those are plain English, so those are more search criteria: contains, doesn't contain, starts with, ends with. So we want to, let's say, starts with, we know we have a Peter in here, but we don't know his username, or we don't know his last names. There's regular expressions being used that now search for anything that starts with Peter. We apply the filter, and there we go. Now we only see the authentications for Peter as they go by. We can see the successes, the failures. Obviously this is just random information right now. We can do some, if we want to clear this filter, we go back to the regular one, or we can try a different one. Let's say we want to do an IP address and it contains 208. We apply this, and there we see just 208 authentication. So very powerful. Watching real-time authentications. Historical logs, there's no real-time information here. Just we can do now reporting on past authentication. By default, and it tells us in the instructions here as well, if we leave this blank, it will show us everything for the time period. So we'll just leave it as is, but we'll go back a month. We do a search, and we see all the information that is in the system. So just some test data in here. We can scroll around, we see the same information, very similar to what's on the real-time monitoring screen, so it's very consistent with things are being in the same spot with the same name, same columns. If we want to filter this, we change our search. Let's say we're gonna do by username, and we want to know because it contains, let's do Peter again. We want to see all his authentication, so here we see them and they're filtered, and obviously we can clear again, and it removes them. If we go back and we go everything. So at this point we have all the information we want, we have it filtered in the way we like. We can now save all this information, so we go save as, and we can just save it in a file, and then if we open up the file, we can now, it's a comma-separated values file, so we can now use it in Excel, further manipulate the data if we want to. So we can further use this. We can also print the information. We get our operating system printer selection screen, and we can email the information as well. So we'll put in our email address in here, and we'll click it, and we get an information saying that was sent, and off it went. If we do a mistake in here, for example, we leave this blank, we get an error message saying please put in a valid email address. So that's for the main components. As said, we can move around with the keyboard. We can use shortcuts here, but also on the keyboard. So Control 1, 2, 3, and 4. We can flip between the screens. We can use Tab to move around, and the cursor, so we can navigate in this program with mouse and keyboard alike. Now, once we're done with the program, all that is left to do is we can now close it by going File Exit, or we use the X on the top here, and that closes the program. So that's it for the network access tool. Thank you very much for watching, and have a nice day.